afternoon to all the participants from India and Taiwan. I want to begin by thanking our dear friend Toby for making this possible. And I will be very short. Today, will be perhaps the first in the series of these technological discussion. We this time focusing on semiconductor, and I think we have some leading experts, even if they are not showing on uh, on on this. We only have a few people speaking this time, but the idea, as Toby and I discussed, we want to get to know and also make ourselves known by all each others. I do hope that in the next hour also, our Indian friends, experts, will be able to introduce a little bit of yourself so that we will get to know you more. And of course, I also hope that you can listen carefully to our experts. We do not have that many, and I can tell this is a really timely issue, not just for semiconductor industry itself, but also garnered by U.S.-China strategic competition. Currently, this has been at the center of everything. So I'm so delighted that we will be able to run this together with Synergia Foundation. And I promise that this will be the beginning of our joint effort. So I look forward to hearing comments from all of you. But of course, today would be all the presentation will be limited to only 6 minutes. And I will leave this to Toby. Toby, why don't you introduce and open up?
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much. Without taking much time, the purpose, and I will summarize it in one sentence, is an attempt to do a brick by brick building of what we think could be a larger collaboration in the fab semiconductor industry. So we're not going one shot to the end. We're trying to see where we can find complementarities in supply chain, in raw material, in technology, and then see how it will grow, because there has to be comfort at both ends. So we'll try to navigate it, and that's the whole idea. So if I could take the liberty and request Dr. Naik, he had recently outlined the sort of framework for the semiconductor industry. Maybe Dr. Naik, you could probably give us a sort of a definition of what you are thinking about.
Okay, thank you, Toby. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen from India and abroad. I would like to introduce myself as Dr. Nayak, as I told earlier, a former Director General of DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization. I have dabbled in microelectronics for last about 40 years and superannuated for 3 years back. From that angle, I am the oldest member from the Indian side. I think I'll try to give perspective of what is the Indian semiconductor industry has been. So far, in the manufacturing of this, or the fab, what you call in semiconductors, is we are not done that very good, but we have some strength in that. To tell our Taiwanese friends, I'd like to say that right now we have about 3 fabs in India. One is in Chandigarh called SCL, Semiconductor Complex Limited. And one is in Bangalore called SITAR, Silicon Technology and Applied Research. And one is in Hyderabad called GATEC. SCL works on semiconductors basically for ASICs and basic silicon technology. and Sita works on MEMS, and GateX works on compound semiconductor devices and related technology and research. So these are the three fabs. Way back, we started in manufacturing somewhere in early 80s till now we are done. But we have a good ecosystem for design. What I'll say, what are our strengths and weaknesses? A weakness, as I told in the beginning, we don't have a state-of-art fabs. That's true. And we are trying to acquire and what are our strength? Strength-wise, we say that VLSI designs, we have very good strength, and even most of the MNCs like Intel, IBM, and all things have a huge design houses in India, and even TI and all. You name anybody, they are there in India, and they have a large presence, and all Indians are working for them. And I would like to tell these friends from abroad that first 65 nanometer chip backend was done from India. Even for Intel, the backend for about the first billion transistor chip was done from India and Bangalore. And there are other things, various things. I think a friend from IESA will tell what our strength in VLSI design. That's the one very good thing there. Second one is what I told you is that we are the fastest growing economy, and you are saying that on the, particularly on the internet side and all things, digital economy, we are the fastest growing, and our demography is fantastically for digital world. We have about 65% people below 30, 35. That means out of the 1.3 billion people, you can imagine what's the digital, aspiring population we have. And hence we are the fastest growing internet and even mobile technology users in India. That means what? That gives a very good market for semiconductors in India. In fact, we say that by 2030, our semiconductor market will be somewhere like $410 billion, more than the oil bill. So that's the perspective I'm saying, market plus the design capacity. And as far as the manufacturing ecosystem is concerned, there were some concerns earlier because I had about, as Toby was telling, about a month back, I had one discussion with Perspect Foundation from Taiwan, and we had a discussion on these aspects. They were having some constraint that whether India has a, ecosystem for fabs like water, electricity, land, and all those. So those things are, not there. No issues at all. In fact, that day I told them we have at least 5 places readily available: land, water, and electricity. Because they were telling some concerns of electricity earlier. It was 2007 case. But I said that is a lot of difference now. We don't have any problem of electricity, water, and other things. As far as the other manufacturing is the proactive government policies. In fact, our government has already said that anybody chip manufacturer would like to come to India, we are offering a $1 billion as an incentive, apart from the other governmental advantages. Okay, and we can give even the market availability and all things if it is manufactured in India. So there are a lot of incentives if you do it in India. From that angle, we are, what you are kind of welcoming anybody, semiconductor industry is coming. That's why I'm telling this particularly, is because our friends from Taiwan has a manufacturing strength. We know that TSMC has got 56% of the global market in semiconductor, and they are the leading in high technology. Even in fact, 3 nanometers, and they are trying to get it by 2023 and 2 nanometers. A lot of investments happening. So it is if we work together, that's what our intention is, that there is a win-win situation for both. We can bring it in what is our market strength and design and proactive government policies, and you bring it in the technology. And we have already asked for a global tender for having expression of interest on the 14 to 28 nanometer range. Why particularly 14 to 28 nanometer? Because we still have to get it used to the lower than that technologies, and we feel that that's economically that's the most optimum solution right now for India. Okay, from that angle, we expect that at least from our friends from Taiwan can take this opportunity and we can work together. So that's one thing I would like to bring it to the table. And I hope from our friend from IESA and other friends are there who will bring in the Indian situation. If any more details are required, I am ready to give it to you. Thank you.
Professor Lu, why don't you decide who will be the front runner from the Taiwanese side?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me now invite the key person, Dr. Dennis Wu, our currently director of Taipei Computer Association, and he represents a number of associations. I know this is a beginning of our conversation, so I would just encourage every one of us to speak concisely, and we would have another time to do more focused discussion. So, Dr. Dennis Wu, please take the floor.
Yeah, good afternoon to our dear friend from India. I guess I should share some information before our discussion about how to cooperate in the future. I think semiconductor industry to Taiwan is a very important industry. I think, as you may know that. But right now, due to the pandemic, there's some impact and some influence about the market and some supply chain. I think in the last years, it's a bit tough. But I think now in this year, right now, what we look is the future is very positive. The overall semiconductor industry remain on track to deliver another strong year of growth as the supply cycle that began at the end of 2019 strengthened this year. Okay, so on the 2020. Okay, so we doesn't expect change much in 2021 about a shortage continuing to impact the market, like the automobile sector and other industry that rely on all the technology nodes. And this industry will continue to struggle and rebalance across different industry segments. The investment in capacity now will improve the industry resilience in a few years. So as Mr. Dr. Nayak, right, just mentioned that some market potential strengths in India. I think I agree with that. Okay, so but that's for to Taiwan is the semiconductor industry. We are looking for the global increase. So I think definitely we will not ignore. I think we will take a very serious about the Indian market because it's a very promising in the future. So and right now to the semiconductor industry in Taiwan, we look at the Indian market and the India potential, but also we look for the whole global development. So as you may know that now some big companies in semiconductor industry like Samsung, TSMC, and Intel have collectively announced more than 130 billion in spending on new chip foundries. And I think India is very interested about their investment as well, I think. So, and the later opening is fabs to outside customers under the Intel Foundry Service Division, like Intel, okay? So, and to TSMC from Taiwan, plans to spend more than 100 billion over the next few years to address capacity demand with all at least one foundry already under construction in Arizona. So I think it's the topic. So India, how to attract them for more interest to invest in India. So I think it takes some time to explore that because semiconductor industry investment is a very sophisticated topic to talk about that. And as you may know, to semiconductor industry company, when they invest in no matter in Arizona, in US, or even in Europe, or in India, or wherever, they will consider some factor. Of course, the land, electricity, water supply is one thing. Certainly, I think it's an essential factor to those the manufacturer industry. But at the same time, so there are several factors that we will also consider, such as the manpower, infrastructure. The infrastructure, like what you say, that the land, electricity, water supply, those things. And also facilities. The facilities such as like logistics and some equipment for, to the semiconductor industry. They got some precision machinery and some tools. So those equipment. And the supporting industry, such as like a petrochemical gas, okay, some chemistry liquid, and high density, some chemistry liquid as well as most of the manufacturers will consider about like a market competition. So we talk about a market competition. One thing you have to remember is the cost incentive. So to the market, from the market point of view, it's the cost issue, like some of the capex investment, which means a capital expenditure investment, whether it's got a competitive price in the market. So it's the competitive from a business point of view. So for those, the 6 factors, those the semiconductor people, industry, they will consider, take into account. So for the ecosystem for manufacturing in India, I think it's got some potential. Like Dr. Nayak just mentioned that to India, you got a strength in kind of like a VLSI design. I think it's a very, very good advantage to India. And then you got a large market, like I think the internet utility usage and the mobile. I think now India is the second largest or largest mobile phone manufacturer, right? So I think it's a very promising in the future. The topic to India is how to improve the 6 factors, what I just mentioned, that one. So to attract or to convince it, not only the Taiwanese the semiconductor industry, but also semiconductor rival in Korea, in US, to make the investment in India. So that's what from my viewpoint. So I think I just stop here, okay? Thank you.
If it is somebody from the Indian side, can I ask Rajiv to give his initial thoughts?
Thanks, Toby. I think thanks for the opportunity. I think it's a great initiative. Regarding IESA is Indian Electronics and Semiconductor Association, with more than 300 members, focused with members from semiconductors as well as the SDM space. I think the figure which Katie talked about, $420 billion, actually started when we came up with the first report together and that's where the whole country started focusing on the ESDM space. So while India is focusing, I think Mr. KD already talked about, we today more than 30% of the global design in semiconductors happens in the country. Say with companies, I think I come from Texas Instruments, so we are in India since 1985, and it has been a great journey with small quality work. When we were there in 1985, it started with small bits and pieces of semiconductor design. But then today, there's hardly any semiconductor device which Texas Instruments produces or manufactures, which is not touched by India. In many cases, even the product definition of the semiconductor device happens out of Bangalore. And so everything up to the silicon fab, everything happens here. Even when the samples come back from the fab, the testing and other things also happens in the country. So I think we are in a position where, because of the great strength in semiconductor design, we can easily step up. Besides having a great market, the total, I mean the in-house consumption, I think we are in a better position now to basically have our first fab. See, what as IESA we decided, while where we are the part and parcel of the PLIs and other schemes what the government of India announced, what we and we are also playing an important role in the expression of interest of which showed close to 20 plus companies participating in the expression of interest for having a fab in the country. And we saw a sizable number of people in the specialty fab showing interest. So this time, having learned from the past, I think we have been talking about semiconductor for almost a decade now. Way back in 2009 it started, but every time there were a lot of teething issues. I think this time the government, what they are trying to do is they are not focusing on what they can do. What they are asking semiconductor companies, what do they want for them to set up the fabrication in the country. So there's a completely different approach this time, and I'm pretty hopeful that this time we will have at least 3 to 4 guys who will set up fabrication in the country, and I'm pretty optimistic about it. While we are doing that, while the government is doing that, and the industry is doing their bit, what we also initiated as IESA is how can India become a part of the global supply chain even before having a fab. When I say fab, although we have 3 fabs in the country, but then when I'm talking about the fab, I'm talking about the high-end commercial fab. So can India play an important role in that? And we have initiated this approach paper. We are coming out with a white paper in next couple of months, and see there are many associate industries, whether it is automotive or pharma companies, which if incentivized can actually start supplying raw materials to the fab or OSAT. I think that will play an important role. That can probably give some confidence to the government as well as to the industry across the world once we actually start supplying these raw materials to the global, whether it is Asia, whether it is Taiwan, any part in the world. So that's where I would like to stop. I don't want to take more time, and thank you. I hope I was audible.
Very.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kushu. Can we now invite the representative of Taipei Computer Association in Bangalore office, Mr. Krishnan? Mr. Krishnan, would you like to take the floor?
Sure. Thank you. Hello to everyone. My name is Premjit, and I'm representing the Taipei Computer Association in India. And I'm so thankful to be part of this discussion because there cannot be a time more opportune than now to initiate this kind of a roundtable on a probable collaboration between Taiwan and India on semiconductor manufacturing, mainly because of the current supply chain constraints resultant of the increased demand spurred by the pandemic. And another is that the global development is increasingly being dependent on the technology adoption across all sections and regions. All these collectively has created a global demand of semiconductor to about $522 billion in 2021, with a 12.5% year-on-year growth as per IDC. And it also sees a continued strong growth backed by the adoption of newer technologies and demand for data services, so on and so forth. This has brought the limelight onto the foundry market, and Taiwan dominates the outsourcing of semiconductor manufacturing market. Its contract manufacturers together accounted for more than 60% of total global foundry revenue last year, according to the Taipei-based research firm TrendForce. And much of this has been attributed to one company, that is TSMC. I think about 54% of the total foundry revenue has gone to TSMC as per the report. The designers and manufacturers are continuously on a quest to make chips smaller and smarter, and TSMC is one among the foundries capable of manufacturing the most advanced chips. And as Dr. Nayak was mentioning, they're also gearing up for the next gen 3 nanometer chip, and as per reports, they might start production in 2022. So Taiwan's journey to become the largest semiconductor supplier is a remarkable one. The Taiwanese entrepreneurs, majority of whom had their education as well as initial industry experience in foreign countries, deserve the credit for this growth, both in bringing technology into Taiwan as well as in initiating this journey. And not only them, the government also deserves the credit for pursuing unique sets of policies at the right time. These policies not only help to reform the capital market in the direction of equities, but also contributing substantial R&D support through the Industry Research Technology Research Institute, ITRI. And I sourced from the association data that since this journey began about 4 decades back, the industry has come up to the stage that the Taiwan semiconductor industry consists of 238 fabulous design companies, 37 packaging and testing companies, 15 fabrication companies, and 11 wafer suppliers, and 7 substrate suppliers, 3 mask makers, and 4 lead frame companies. This is the ecosystem. And this entire ecosystem is well within a distance of few hundred miles. As you know, that Taiwan is a very small island. And from this number, it's also notable that the Taiwanese industry clustered in a vertically disintegrated infrastructure, where few numbers of companies focus on a particular expertise rather than trying to do everything. And the fact is, many of these companies are SMEs, the small and medium enterprises. So the bigger players have to decide on moving to or investing in a new market, and then the suppliers move along. This ecosystem is the beauty, the success, and the current glory of the Taiwanese semiconductor industry. And to the other side, to the flip side, this itself can become I wouldn't say a challenge, but a mere inconvenience for a player within the system, as it then need to be highly thoughtful of ROI when moving to a new market, new geography, or a new ecosystem. And since fab is very complex in terms of both technology as well as commercial operation, it requires large investments, also taking into consideration the high level of obsolescence and a great amount of support for business and operational ability. So balancing among the market, investment, infrastructure, and technology will be the key factors. A far-off supply chain could make a dent on logistic cost, and hence the option has to be a complete and closer ecosystem. And as was mentioning, like stable and quality power and water supply should be part of the infrastructure planning, and a strong and long sustainable policy framework would be very critical. And not just the availability of a skilled labor, but also a labor management needs to be planned and structured, especially when operating in geography with different culture. But taking view from an other angle, I think the Taiwanese companies should also be thinking out of the box in a situation like the pandemic, which has not only created opportunities, but also have created situations wherein many countries started thinking about self-reliance, mainly due to the security aspects, both internal as well as from outside the country. And that necessitates the companies to be closer to the market, and also the geopolitical situation push these companies to diversify their investments in other geographies. And of course, as many of the speakers was mentioning, like, India is becoming the leader in terms of availability of it's kind of like a design power. So definitely, I think the cost can also be a factor when it considered to be investing in India. And I feel that all these are achievable if the parties to the act sitting around a table to discuss, decide, and drive this seriously and strongly. And I hope that let this roundtable be a step towards that direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I now request Professor Kamakoti? Kamakoti is a professor at the Indian Institute of Technology in Madras, and he's also a member of the Prime Minister's National Security Advisory Board.
Thank you, Toby. Put a lot of things in the correct perspective. So the things are that India is certainly, as a consumer base, any activity of manufacturing, packaging also, you actually become closest to the market. Not only that, of late we are actually trying to have our Prime Minister has bring out the notion of Atmanirbharta, which means self-reliance, as one of the members actually mentioned. There's also a national security angle to that. We are going to incentivize Indian-based designs. There are policies that are coming up, and some are already in place. And that means you'll also be closest to the product, right? It's not just closest to the market, but there is also going to be a closeness to the product. So you will be seeing a lot more of the system level design, not just the the chip, but also system level designs being made here. And that essentially encourages setting up of your fabrication facility and also packaging facility. These two are very important. And we are also looking at, if you look at the general market now, I need not tell the Taiwanese about this, but still technologies greater than or equal to 90 nanometer are still valid. We have the complete high voltage domain. We have a lot of things that we could do for the electric vehicles and the solar energy and other systems, which are 180 nanometer or above 90 nanometer. So there could also be some joint ventures wherein we bring in these type of technology fabs here, by which we quickly, and there is a big market here, there are products here, and there are also the market, the consumers here. So that is something that we can quickly ramp up and start as a joint venture. This is also one very important scheme. The other thing, since I am coming from an academic institution, one of the things would be human resource development. In addition to the natural resources like water, electricity, land, we have a running fab. We have 3 running fabs, as Dr. Naik mentioned. And so that is not going to be a big deal about the natural resources, and those will be available. The other important resource, of course, is the human resource availability. And there, just 1 week before we started an Indo-Taiwan relationship through the Taipei Center, where a private university from South India named Shastra University has signed up an MOU with 2 universities, the Asian University and Yuanzhou University, wherein on a yearly basis, 50 students from India will be going to Taiwan, working on the fab, working on the on the working with the university on advanced semiconductor manufacturing courses, and they will be coming back, and we have a good industry support for that. So in the human resource building, specifically on the fabrication and manufacturing on the semiconductor technology, we have made a small step, and I'm sure this will grow to many more interaction between many Taiwanese universities and Indian universities. So just to sum up, India has the market. India also will have the product, and the pandemic actually has, and many other reasons, but pandemic in particular has necessitated that every company, every product line, every country need to have a redundant supply chain. India can be the next destination for Taiwan, and we are also looking at fabs, not necessarily 2-3 nanometer, but even 90 and above, because there's a good market for it. And then this human resource development, where we have taken some step and we can really pull it up. I think these are some of the comments that I wanted to make here, and I'm sure this roundtable will be a big starting point, the first step towards a very solid collaboration in the most important disruptive technology, the semiconductor technology that is needed. Thank you very much, Toby, for inviting me. You are muted.
Professor, you can, you would like to ask somebody else, or shall I continue?
Okay, I would suggest since we are more concentrating on semiconductor industry for now, and Professor Yao Hongmin will be addressing to more geopolitical dimension, and you also have Professor Mr. Krishnamurthy will be addressing geostrategy. Perhaps we can put them together so that the issue can be more focused. What do you think at this time?
Sure, all of you to greet you on this occasion. My name is Krishnamurthy. I am the CEO of IESA, just joined that position about 3 weeks back, and Toby was kind enough to invite me for this event. And I'm delighted to be in the midst of all of you. And I will take only 5-6 minutes. That's the time allotted for me, and I'll try to stay within the time frame because there are others who have to speak. So I would like to emphasize on the most important aspect of semiconductors and the supply chain today, and what the world is facing and what it will continue to face, the way things are shaping up for the next 2 years in my assessment, right? So there are 4 pillars that we need to consider between India and Taiwan. The first pillar, of course, is what Taiwan has achieved in the field of semiconductors, starting from what as a small beginning in the Italy campus to a global giant that it is in semiconductor manufacturing today. I think that's probably the biggest pillar that we need to understand in India, how that was developed, what were the models that were followed, and how it became a global giant today. The second pillar I would consider as India's strength as a counterpart of Taiwan's manufacturing strength today is the India's design ecosystem. So when it comes to semiconductor design, probably India's capabilities have been proven to be as good, comparable to some of the best in class in the world, including the Bay Area, both in the semiconductor design as well as the embedded system software. I think India leads the pack comfortably compared to many others. So between design and manufacturing, we have a powerhouse combination here between the Indian semiconductor design ecosystem and Taiwan's manufacturing ecosystem. Now we come to the third pillar, which probably we can create, I would say, by collaboration between the Taiwan's associations and Synergia and IESA, how we can join hands. And it is important, in my opinion, because today, in many aspects, we are seeing that the world is moving towards a throttle on the supply chain from a couple of entities, and I'm sure you understand what I mean. And that will be detrimental to the business globally if we allow that to happen. So it's all the more important in the pandemic, post-pandemic world, Taiwan and India join hands to leverage each other's strength in design and manufacturing and become a truly global powerhouse when it comes to supply chain of semiconductor products. And if you don't do it, I'm pretty sure very shortly you will see that we are all at the mercy of maybe one or two nations in the world, and that's not going to be good for the industry at all. And I think we have to quickly and cleverly find out ways of getting out of the clutches of that situation. And the fourth pillar, I would say, is what we can jointly achieve to make that happen in terms of talent development. I mean, we have seen how the talent in both countries have overcome the pandemic imposed constraints, but we have come out successfully in terms of keeping the design and manufacturing successfully going. Now, how can we work together to create more skills, more talent, which is probably one of the pressing needs to increase the capacity? And where can we increase the capacity? What are the parameters that we need to consider? How can we influence the governments on both sides to make these things happen on the ground? We have been talking about it, but I think it's a time for us to come together and really hit the nail on its head and make these things happen on the ground. And I think there cannot be better partner countries than in semiconductors, other than Taiwan and India. One is design powerhouse, the other a manufacturing powerhouse. And if we join hands, I think we can do wonders. And as a very simple step, first step, I would strongly recommend, can we look at some of the Taiwan entities establishing the outsourced semiconductor assembly and test, what we call the OSAT, or then ATMP, assembly, test, manufacturing, and packaging entities. If we can do any one of these successfully in India, then I think we would have changed the world, the way the world today depends on semiconductor supply chain ecosystem, to a completely new paradigm shift that we can create and make it successful. In the next 2-3 years, we should be able to achieve this. And IESA will work assiduously, I promise, with the government of India to whatever changes are required in policies, whatever enablers are required to remove the disabilities that we have and make it happen. And I'm sure the team in Taiwan side, as well as the other organizations in India, like the FICCI and all, who are part of this this platform today, we all will work together, the respective governments to come together, and maybe we can write a new success story in the semiconductor supply chain. I will stop here to take any questions. I'm sorry that I'm slightly in a noisy place, but I hope you are able to hear me well. And I will stop here and take questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Perhaps I suggest Professor Yao at this point follow through Mr. Murthy's remarks and perhaps connect the issue further. Professor Yao, please.
Thank you, Professor Liu, and thank you, Dr. Toby Simon. Thanks for your kind invitation to the event. I want to share some of my observation regarding the geopolitical competition in the region. Try to make things a little bit complicated. That's what I do normally. So we understand U.S. has been engaging with China in an intensified tech competition. And last year, since the U.S. amended its export administration regulation and banned the export of the semiconductor technology to China, and this has made the world change their focus to the semiconductor industry. Through the discussion, we understand nowadays we can basically find these microchips or integrated circuits in every bit of our human activities, from your cars, your fridge, and even your toys. However, most of the conversation has been centered around the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. And I want to add a bit different touch from this. So, there are 3 points I want to share with you. First, we understand that creating microchip is not an easy endeavor and involve a lot of the supporting activities other than the actual manufacturing or fabrication. So this includes the silicon materials, fabrication, packaging, testing, supporting material, and gas required through the whole supply chain. And as from the earlier discussion, you understand currently more than 60% of the microchip in the fabless manufacturing market are done in Taiwan. And secondly, the general strategy we all know is, try to make your silicon wafer bigger and try to use nanotechnology to grow more complicated electronic circuit on a given space. So this is the reason nowadays our small tiny handheld device is not growing in size, but getting more powerful. And a couple of weeks ago, we heard from the news that Intel, Apple, they want to be the first customer of the TSMC's latest 3 nanometer production technology. However, only high-end smart devices need such powerful computation abilities. And other foundries, like UMC, they're also very critical to the modern society, as they may produce the microchip used in your cars or electricity meters. And thirdly, semiconductor foundries are capital heavy and technology intensive. It costs about 12 billion for TSMC to build a new foundry in the US. And you also need immense human talent to advance the operation of the facility. So in Taiwan, the most intelligent and smartest guy, they go to semiconductor industry, and people not smart like me doing international politics. So this means that for companies that want to invest in this sector, they also need to consider if they would be business feasible and technology competitive in the market. So having said that, most of the semiconductor technology are from the US. And that's the reason that the US sanction on the China's SMIC is so devastating. But however, we need to know that Taiwan is still very important in the global semiconductor fabrication. So just, either we see this kind of competition as more like power-driven or like the ideological competition between the US and China. I want to, highlight that early this year in 2021, Chinese Communist Party passed its 14th 5-year plan, and it pledged to obtain, as I quote, the core position of the innovation in China's overall modernization and have technology self-reliance, 自立, and self-improvement, 自强, in order to make China into a technology powerhouse. And in June 2001, China also passed the anti-sanction laws in order to resist the US sanction. And from the outside, from the Joe Biden side, it doesn't look like he's going to change the policy legacy from Donald Trump. He imposed further sanctions on Huawei SMICs. And in June 2001, the US Senate also passed the US Innovation and Competition Act to build a more resilient supply chain. It's also reported, we heard about, during Trump's time, the Product Network. Now it has been elevated and become a new project. It's called the Build Back Better World in the G7 meeting. So all this, I want to conclude it with 3 implications. So first, information technology initially was designed with a mandate of the interconnection, and this inherited nature has made the supply chain across the intermingled network. So the US sanction on China's tech firms, including Huawei, ZTE, and SMIC, and make the Taiwanese company both gaining and suffering. So this is to say that ICT-reliant Indo-Pacific area is yet to encounter more turbulences amid this tech competition. And second, and I also want to remind that global semiconductor supply chain is a delicate endeavor. History tells us that during World War II, ball bearings factory was considered as a critical element among Nazi Germany's military supply chains. Hence, the Allied force focused on bombarding this German asset to start its war effort. And what this means for the semiconductor industry is that the whole semiconductor ecosystem is in East Asia. And each of the material, special gas for the production process, fabrication, testing, packaging has taken many years to evolve. And due to the high specialization of the company in this each step, industry reports already indicate that typical semiconductor production process includes multiple countries, and the product may cross international border over 70 times. This situation has made the semiconductor supply chain very fragile, as there are many potential bottlenecks, and that could be created due to any tiny disruption. And finally, this comes to my last point. Given this ecosystem, I'm not just talking about the land, electricity, or the natural environment. I'm talking about the actual supporting ecosystem. They are all located in the East Asia. And this means that regional security in this region becomes extremely important to the supply chain. In retrospect, if you remember 1996, when China conducted missile drills around Taiwan Strait, to signal its political message, the price of the computer components rose substantially that year. And yet, now, only a handful of the semiconductor manufacturers are capable of making high quality and extremely compact microcomputer chips. And they are all located in the East Asia. I know some countries, they want to invest substantially, but it will take years before they can realize their investment and have the sufficient technology capabilities. Hence, this means that the regional security of the East Asia is extremely important for the semiconductor supply chain, and the international community need to pay more attention to the regional development. And without occupying too much, time, I'll stop here. And this concludes my talk, and hope to see you guys soon, maybe sometime in Taiwan. Back to you, Professor Liu or Dr. Toby Simon. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you have given a very different perspective about the East Asian security and the need to keep this area safe as a way forward. So let me now invite Sumit Burma, Director Strategy of Intel, to share his insights.
Thanks, Toby, for inviting me. Just a quick check if my audio is okay. All right, and good to hear from all of you. And it not only gave me some time to think, but also gave me some time to see what should be the next steps that we all can take here. I represent Intel, and I've been 18 years plus at Intel, so I've been adult at Intel in some way. In my current role, I'm responsible for external alliances in the Indian ecosystem, especially related to research and growth initiatives. Although I think Intel doesn't need introduction, but since there was a new strategy in place, I thought it's worth reiterating in case you have not, in case you don't know about it. Intel, since it was founded in 1968, has been an integrated device manufacturer, or we call it IDM. That means a company that both designs and builds its own semiconductors. Our new CEO, Pat Gelsinger, a few months ago said that we are, this is what he said, right? We are setting a course for a new era of innovation and product leadership at Intel. And what he means by IDM 2.0 are three main components. First is to continue to build most of our products in-house and expand internal factory network for at-scale manufacturing, which means that additional investment will go into fabrications. About $20 billion investment has been already announced in Arizona. We will expand the use of third-party foundries. We are already using some third-party foundries for specific equipments. We'll continue to use that. That provides us with additional flexibility and scale. And third is building a world-class foundry business model services, which Intel has not done to that effectiveness till date. It's called IFS, Intel Foundry Services, right? So we do plan to engage with technology ecosystem and industry partners to deliver this IDM 2.0 vision. And what I thought would be relevant for today's discussion are 3 points. And first is emerging trends in India, and recap of what Dr. Naik and others have also said. Key external and internal factors for corporations like Intel in India, and some views of how India could become a global leader in supply chain ecosystem, right? Because right now we have a lot of talent, but from a semiconductor supply chain ecosystem, India doesn't rank anywhere close to, in the top 20 or even. So there has to be some aspiration that we have to build up in the system. So with that, So first part, which is what are the emerging insights that we are seeing from India. First is, supply chain roles. Although the design houses in India have grown tremendously, the supply chain roles itself, which is kind of supply chain planning, supply chain sourcing, operations and fulfillment, those have increased substantially, and those have been moved to India substantially and to some neighboring countries. Second trend is strong design ecosystem, which has been mentioned by Professor Kama, Dr. Naik, and also Rajiv. Essentially, many companies have strong design centers in India. They use ARM and other technologies that grows the capabilities for both pre-silicon as well as post-silicon stage, right? So as we know, in terms of semiconductor designs, right, we have several designs, but pre-fabrication, you have a lot of validations happen, and post-fabrication. So I think India ranks really well in terms of, pre and post. Third trend that we are seeing is government role and policy incentives. Government is now rolling out schemes to encourage electronics manufacturing, and thus, of creating a vision to see India as hub for manufacturing and assembling activities. Some major companies are exploring those possibilities. We know Samsung is leading the pack right now. Tata Group is also, looking to invest. I also know about an ISC gallium nitride fab. Professor Kama may know more details about it. But idea is, because of this incentivization and focus, those activities are happening in India. Second, moving to the second aspect, which is several internal and external factors, that enable companies like Intel to revisit its strategy and revisit where their team should be on the global footprint. Right. First is, a shift in the whole semiconductor business model. Right. There's a huge growth of AI chips. Right. Over the next 5 years, it's expected that 80% of the growth in semiconductor industry would be led through AI-based chips. Right. So that's a good indicator. There has been global and regional supply chain opportunities. My colleagues from the Taiwan team just mentioned about the geopolitical conflicts and situation. So there is increasingly locating in-house supply chain roles and setting up supply chain center of excellence. And then India has a role in, setting up and ensuring how you can influence that semiconductor supply chain. There's a growing customer base in India, suppliers who are developing on various technologies, x86, ARM, RISC, etc. And then we look into the supply chain value, the value chain of supply chain, right? I see a lot of people focusing on manufacturing itself, but as my previous speaker told, that building semiconductor is not easy. It requires lot of activities. So if you break up the value chain of supply chain, you have an core R&D required, step 1. Then you have design as step 2, which will have IPs, which will have EDAs. Then step 3 is the core fabrication or manufacturing, which will require wafer technology, in which Taiwan leads globally. Raw materials that's required. Fourth is assembling, testing, and packaging, and finally distribution. So that whole value chain requirement. Now, if we take to India and we look into companies which already has a strong design talent situated, there was this report, and I don't know the number exactly, but if you look into the top design houses in India, top design houses of the world that have offices in India, companies like Intel, TI, ARM, Qualcomm, etc. At least 30% of the global workforce, right, are in India, which is a big deal, right, in some ways. And whereas when you look into the supply chain ecosystem in relate to semiconductors, that's not very strong. So there is a mismatch, right? And that's where I think if India has to take a lead, and Taiwan is required, Taiwan for semiconductors is required for the world, right? So definitely India also, partnerships that India could do with Taiwan would go a long way both ways. And an interesting model that exists is to build up supply chain center of excellences that several firms take up, and that helps drive improvements across the procurement, operations, logistics, and quality-based engineering. Right. So what I would suggest is that now, if we really are motivated and say that India is set to be in a place where it would be a top global country for semiconductor supply chain, what's required? What incentives should the industry ask government in addition to what government is already thinking? How can industry collaborate through associations and through other models? How knowledge exchange can happen between like-minded countries like India, Taiwan? How the skill set, talent could be flourished even more, suiting these needs, right? And a unique model that could result into is creating those multiple center of excellences in India with focus areas, right? Because it's a big space, as we said. Manufacturing is not the only area, though it's very, very critical. And then create those multiple center of excellences, provide them with, feed them well, and then eventually they will grow and accomplish all what we want to do, not only from this team, but broader national priorities. With that, I'll pause and back to you, Toby.
Yeah, we have one very distinguished speaker, Professor R. Muralidharan from the Indian Institute of Science. He was in charge of several top institutes in the country. Professor Muralidharan, would you be kind to speak?
Good afternoon. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak on this occasion. And many things have been said about the opportunities in India, the strengths of India, the weaknesses in India, all that. And my previous speaker, Mr. Sunil, I think, he from Intel mentioned about a project that is been initiated at the Indian Institute of Science. I'm part of that institute and part of that project. I can give you some perspective on that. But before that, I would like to give you a brief introduction that I was with the DRDO, and Professor K.D. Naik was my boss in that organization. I was the director of solid state physics laboratory in Delhi, and then subsequently I was and in between I was the CEO of the Gallium Arsenide Technology Enabling Center, which pilot produces gallium arsenide mimics. And presently I am with the Indian Institute of Science, part of the team which is developing the pilot production process for gallium nitride based chips. So many things have been said about the fab, and the connotation is fab means a silicon foundry of let us say sub 50 nanometer or sub 100 nanometer gate lengths or feature size. But what we at the Indian Institute of Science have started to work on is a small scale fab which can get multiplied or which can get expanded to a large scale fab is of gallium nitride, which is an emerging semiconductor. So here is an opportunity for the semiconductor industry in Taiwan to collaborate, to establish or to forge some relationships with the Indian counterparts to not, it is not necessary that we should always look at silicon. Silicon is important, and that has been emphasized by many people. But in the emerging semiconductors like gallium nitride or silicon carbide, which is essential for e-vehicle, solar, and all kinds of power converters, inverters, etc., and 5G, not to mention, the most important is the 5G application, and these are all emerging. So we are not behind. We are not. There is a huge design capability. The recent, for example, they call as the ORAN capability, open source radio network capability, where many of the smaller players are trying to design a radio network based on, maybe some of them may use gallium nitride, some of them may use gallium arsenide. So there is a 3-5 or a compound semiconductor opportunity for Taiwanese if they want to grab that one in India. And it can become, for example, they could expand. I know they have a capability in Taiwan. Win Semiconductors is one I know. And they could expand their base in India and create an opportunity, I mean, or exploit this opportunity and become a world supply center based out of India. So this is and regarding the human resource, I wanted to inform you that there are several, I mean, as a government initiative for the past 15 years, there have been several centers which have a kind of a fab-like facility. It's not a fab, an R&D facilities in which many of the students learn many of the techniques that are used in fab, and many of the designs that are useful to fab. And so there is a huge human resource potential which is available in India, which presently goes out of India to get employment. But that if they are given an opportunity to work in India, they would as well grab that. And therefore, there is a huge potential from the point of view of human resources. And here is an opportunity for the Taiwanese counterpart to exploit and expand. With that, I would like to close my talk.
Thank you, Professor Muralidhar. I think, Professor Liu, would you like to start with some concluding remarks, and then we can give it back to each speaker for a brief 1 minute, hopefully just to say that, okay, we would like the discussion to go to as stage 2.
Okay, thank you for such a great presentation. It is unusual in this video conference. We would be able to invite 9 speakers all together. Unfortunately, we have not extended too much time as we originally planned. So we might have roughly 20-some minutes for discussion. And I'm not making such a conclusion, but perhaps just pose a few questions, since speakers from India already introduced and also made such a strong remarks, suggesting currently India and Taiwan perhaps as a nature partner for semiconductors. And we have heard and also promote, especially Dr. Dennis Hu, his association already promoted such a work connecting with Indian industry for almost a decade. And I think so far there are obviously some difficulties lying ahead for Taiwanese and other industry invest in India. And I just thought just a moment ago that with all the advantages India currently has, and also Taiwan's advantage combining together. Obviously, people presented in this meeting hope that we can make it happen as partners. But I think perhaps we can later ask our presenters from both sides to ask those negative or challenge for industry to make partners. So I think perhaps later I will ask Dr. Dennis Hu in particular, whether in this new era, especially in the next couple of years, all of us will be challenged by the COVID-19 in India and also in the region overall. So whether we would come up with a new model partnership to make it happen, and or in another way, I do think that there have some cases invested in India, ending up with quite negative feeling over there. So some of the things perhaps are beyond this technology efforts and development. Most of those things are not economic challenge or obstacle for us. Perhaps another governance issue and all others. I do hope that in this particular occasion, presenters would be able to share, perhaps not immediately solve all the challenge for us, but leading to the future, we can really put down all those challenge all together, and then starting from there, see if we may be able to come up with some possibilities. So these are something before we move on to and open up this floor for all our presenters to ask or to share, and hopefully finding the solution. And I learned Dr. Dennis, who has confronted with a lot of questions from our industry, and also your members of the association frequently ask the similar question to you. So would you like to perhaps share and to start with the discussion?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Liu. First of all, I think we have many years for cooperation with India for maybe 10 years already. So from my point of view, I don't see what you mentioned about, we shouldn't say like a negative problem, okay? Not a negative. We should say, how do we improve the cooperation, not the negative. So, but I think every cooperation, there are some barriers, some constraints. So the issue is how do we work together to find some solution. So we have some cooperation in India. In fact, in last 10 years, it's most about like ICT is in computer, most of the computer industry. So we have some member already. They have to invest in India, like Acer, like recently, like Wistron and Foxconn and Pegatron. As in, I think in recent 3 years, they already investing in India. Talk about the semiconductor industry. Perhaps it's a bit different. Maybe we should to talk more about how to improve some issue. As I mentioned that there are 6 factors some semiconductor countries, semiconductor companies, they will considering, like human resources, infrastructure, facilities, supporting industry, and market competition, and some capex investment. So for those factors, so we should both to think about the model. How do we work together in the semiconductor industry? But we talk about the semiconductor industry because please aware that the semiconductor industry includes a lot. It's very sophisticated. Not only fabrication, not only the foundry. It's included like the whole semiconductor industry structure. They got like design, research and design, IC design, as you mentioned that, VSI design and packaging, testing, or maybe you can say right now some assembly as well. So it's included a lot of the things we can cooperate in semiconductor industry. From my point of view, it needs to be cooperate step by step, logically and practically, such as like Mr. Krishnamurthy, right? So Mr. Krishnamurthy just mentioned that I just know that there's ATMP, you mean that, right? Assembly, testing, and mark, and what do you call it? Package. I guess it's a kind of the entry cooperation. Maybe we can explore that model, but not only like at the beginning. It's from the fabrication, this kind cooperation, because it's involved a lot of the sophisticated production factor. So but of course we can go to that. But I mean, if we can take the step by step about the cooperation, I think India got the strength, especially in design, especially IC design, as Mr. Sumit Burma, right, the director from India, Intel. You just mentioned that a lot of the big company design house in the world, they set up their operation in India. I think it's a very, it's one of the big strengths for India. Explore the semiconductor industry cooperation with Taiwan. We can start from the IC design, because I think it will be a very good entry point, especially it's the strength currently in India. So I think it's all of that. It's not the negative factor. I think it should be like a positive factor, so we can improve our cooperation. As for our organization, we are playing kind of like a platform, a bridge for the communication with the industry in India, with India and Taiwan. I think I just conclude right now here. Okay, don't want to spend too much time. Okay, we can talk later again. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I wondered anybody from the panels would like to share further. Toby, do you have any further points?
I just wanted to ask Sandeep Arora whether he would like to make an intervention. Sandeep, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Toby. Thank you so much. Sorry,
Sandeep,
slightly bad connection at my end today. Am I audible, Toby? Hello.
Yeah, you're audible. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think thanks, Toby, for organizing this. This has been a absolutely great session. And I think the key here obviously is that both the countries need to cooperate. Both the industries from both the countries need to cooperate to a large extent. And I think as the current challenges have shown, across the board, that the supply chain ecosystem is so complex that if we don't build redundancies, we are all in for more root shots going forward. And I think from our side, the Indian industry, the Indian electronics and semiconductor industry, we are absolutely committed to make sure that we work closely with the Taiwan industry and take this dialogue forward, and make sure that various aspects of components, semiconductor supply chain are looked at in detail. And then we obviously look at what can be done for future proofing our supply chains across the board. So we are in touch with the government of India also, making sure that they are also aware of the problem and they are engaged with us in terms of finding the right solutions, finding the right backups. And we look forward to absolutely working with all of you in making that happen going forward.
Thank you, Sandeep. Is there somebody else who would like to sort of provide a last-minute brief? We have about 10 minutes. Dr. Nayak, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I would like to say a few things. See, whenever we are doing this first exercise, what's the next thing to be done? So my feeling is we should concentrate one or two things. One is, since we are saying that one area where you can start up is like ATMP, right? So since ATMPs, there are a lot of companies in Taiwan, as I mentioned, SMEs and MSMEs. we should start up at least few industries who would like to come to India, which have a not that they would like to come or they work with India. So if the Taiwanese friends can talk to them out of whatever the industry, they have a lot of industries. And then we can bring our counterparts from India and have a things. And they can bring out what they expect out of India. So those things we should start off somewhere, we should move. The second part is in manufacturing. Since we have been telling that we have got a very strong design houses and startups are there, Taiwanese manufacturer like TSMC or UMC, they should be able to give standard cells or standard cell libraries to Indian startups, and we can get them manufactured in Taiwan. May not be first manufacturing in India. So what we can do is, at least build a bridge so that Indian companies designing, getting the rules and all those things. Then Taiwan companies will think that our strength, what is the strength and all those things. It's some matching has to start. You see, we need not only keep on talking. Something has to move on the ground. Okay, my feeling is that yes, the fab, if we say it's a complex business, you have to learn. But there are opportunities, as I told in the thing right now from the government side, they can exploit that. Otherwise, if they have some, worries or hesitations of other limitations in India, yes, we have said that in hardware, we have some equipment maintaining ecosystem is not there. As far as the gas and chemicals, I would like to tell our friends that India is a very strong pharmaceutical industry also, where we have got, gas and chemical strength. And I think we should be able to do something better in that sense. But equipment, yes, we have some problems. Even in the maintenance of equipment, we don't have a good ecosystem in India. That's true. So those things have to be bridged. Till then, what you can do is at least start up somewhere. Okay. One is ATMP level, what you can do. And we have ecosystem in India. They have ecosystem, how to work together. The second one is the main manufacturing itself. They should be able to use Indian startups for designing, and so that we can know the ecosystem. Then they are the manufacturing in Singapore in the initial stages. Later, if they feel that very good or things are working fine, they can start, moving some of their, what you call for them, it may be older fabs like 14, 26 or 45 nanometers. They can start shifting in India, so that we have a supply chain distribution in globally. That's what everybody is talking about, this supply chain conjunctions and all the things that can be distributed globally. I think somewhere we should start working. We should not only start in the first gear and stuck in this first gear for a long time. Always engine should, for a smooth running, car should start changing the gear. So we should not move in the first gear. Start first gear, yes. Second, third gear, we should move it. That's the high time now. And I feel geopolitical as well as the ecosystem, global situations and supply chain constraint, whatever everybody is feeling now, is the right time. I don't think we should lose any time in that. That's my feeling. Thank you.
Professor Liu, if somebody would like to speak from your side.
Yes, I see a hand from Danny. Danny, are you there? You want to ask a question or share something?
Yes. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I would like to ask that how does the semiconductor industry from Taiwan can contribute to the SME industries in India? Is there any possibility of such collaboration?
Yes, anybody from the panelists would like to respond?
So one of the enabling, I'm Professor Kamakochi from IIT Madras. So one of the important thing today that we face, right? So is the silicon. See, we have a lot of IPs, right? To actually make those IPs to marketable, we need silicon proof. One of the things is that if we could get some good shuttles where we can enable the IPs generated by the SMEs to be manufactured and provide a silicon proof, that will be the biggest contribution as of now that we see.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
One question to my Taiwanese friends is, are there any semiconductor companies willing to move to India, even if it is old technology? Are there any companies who will be willing to move to India? And if yes, we can facilitate what they want, and we can actually help facilitate that. So is my question.
So Dr. Hu, can you respond to your members? How many of them are thinking?
Well, I think, yes, I think I should say like that. I know, in fact, the IESA, we have a long time cooperation ever since the Mr. Vidya Shankar, and the last chairman is the Dr. Gupta, I think, right? So we have around 8 years already, we have a cooperation with IESA. I know that semiconductor companies in Taiwan, most of them they got the latest technology, the higher technology. In fact, some of the old technology of the semiconductor industry in Taiwan, not too many companies they still hold it, because it's no market value. When you produce some products that perhaps its price competition is not variable, but they still have some old technology companies, semiconductor companies. They would like to have some cooperation with India. Yes, I can tell you yes. In fact, as far as I know, some companies they have some discussion in India. But I think it's more about company topic. We cannot discuss too much more here. So I think the answer is yes. Some companies they are exploring the opportunity. Yes, but whether they will go further, we will see. We will see. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So that's. And also, I think
if you feel any of them need any help in India, outside, as we work very closely with Invest India, Government of India, the local industry, if any of the companies, as they explore partnerships in India, if they think they need any help, you can always reach out to any of us at ISA.
Sure. Yeah, I think we keep our good friendship with IESA very long time. Definitely, we will go to IESA. So next trip, if I go to Bangalore, I will pay you a visit. In
Absolutely.
fact, I have been in your office, your headquarters. Yes. In fact, I have been in your office before.
Look forward to hosting you.
We are moving from there. We are moving to a much better place now.
Oh, I see. Okay. So I will pay you a visit in my next trip. I go to India. And also, I think another thing I would like to raise and maybe some suggest to my Indian friend. Okay, so to Taiwanese companies, they are very concerned about government policies consistency. Okay, consistency. So therefore, I think it will be one of the factors, and I think it's important factors to Taiwanese companies, not only the semiconductor industry, but also all the companies, if they want to invest in India. The policies consistency and the policy transparency, and also some of the, maybe you can say some operation consistency, the procedure. I think it's very important to Taiwanese company. Of course, not only the semiconductor company, okay? Therefore, and to India, it's a typical case is that now in India, you have you call it a PLI, I think. It's a production linked incentive scheme. So I think it's a good incentive, good motivation to some of the Taiwan companies. They start their investment in India for the production manufacturing, such as like Wistron and the Pegatron. Even they are not the semiconductor countries, companies so that they do launch their investment there. So it's some of the government policies, consistency, transparencies, and procedure is the regulation. It's a kind of important factor which Taiwanese company will consider. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
So I think what we do is I think there are some aberrations what happens, but at the same time, the government engages into discussions, and finally we are able to find a solution. So I think many of the policies which have been in place have been targeted to some of our neighboring countries with whom we don't have great relations because of various reasons. But what happens in tackling those, it starts hurting our friendly nations companies as well. So that's where what we do as IESA is work very closely with them and try to navigate and find out a solution which is acceptable. So what I can assure you on behalf of Government of India as well as IESA, that we will work out and ensure that there is consistency in the policy, and none of the companies, including Taiwanese or other companies who are located in India, will not face any issues which will make it difficult for them to work in India or expand in India. I stop here. Thank you.
So this is Kamakoti here.
I think we have already crossed.
Saying that you should bring the specific problems. Say when you talk to government or anything, generally inconsistencies in what sense? You should get the feedback from the industry, your industry, and come back. That will be more productive. So that detail. That's what I want. How companies to companies, something reaction may be better. So that whatever the problem they are facing, maybe that's the best way to go ahead.
I think Mr. Krishnan will be in a very, Premjit Krishnan will be in a good position to tell us some of those real issues that are being discussed at your end. And maybe that could be relayed to, if you feel, to IESA or to us also, so that we are able to keep a little bit of a tab as we try to develop this template and see that at least we are able to help in solving a few problems.
I wouldn't mention most of the things as issues, but I would like to mention it as mere inconveniences, and the majority of those things are coming, from a cultural aspect, because the way in which those companies used to do certain works in a particular culture is completely different when they do that in Indian market. So I also suggest them in terms of we have a very proactive government as well as industry associations to take up any valid issues with those right authorities. And also, my suggestion to them would be there are ways of doing it. Like if I don't know how to do a particular activity in a different geography, then find out a person who can do it in a right way in that particular geography. So the joint ventures and collaboration with the right, supporting ecosystem or a supporting players is, I always used to suggest those companies. But again, that's what even in my initial reference, I mentioned, like the companies have to think out of their box. So it's not just, okay, I'm comfortable in doing the business in this way, but when I move to a new geography, it might not be the same way that I used to do the business, but it might be in a different way. And there I need more collaboration. There I need more, holding hands in that particular geography. And of course, blessings and support from the authorities like the government and other regulators. So I think most of the things are, and we, even though the Taiwan companies raise some of those things, we try to make them understand, how things can be worked out in India in collaboration with most of these associations. That's what Dennis was mentioning about the MOU that we signed with IESA and some of the other Indian associations as well.
I think we are well past the 3 o'clock. We are about 6 minutes. We have exceeded. So I think I will leave it to you to conclude. And I just want to thank all of you for sharing your very, very valuable insights. We will sort of paraphrase it, put it into some sort of a report, share it with you so that we can prepare for a round 2.
Sounds good. Thanks all.
Thank you very much, Toby. I think today's discussion is very important, opening up a number of specific areas. In the past, there are a number of Taiwanese companies already operate in India. But as all of you mentioned, we are now talking about not just one investment area. You also mentioned design, manufacturing, and also technological cooperation. So in this new era, perhaps we need to see a complex or combination of joint effort, not just company by company. Dr. Hu also mentioned policy consistency is a challenge for Taiwanese industry. There may be also legal issue, but now on top of all these technological effort, we also have a new issue, strategic, geostrategic issue come to play. So perhaps this is the reason why Synergia Foundation works closely with Taiwan Center for Security Studies. We want to also collaborate with industrial sectors. Combining together, we can see all the question and challenge to all of us. And I think Toby and I would, based on whatever we discussed today, move on the next step. And we do hope that in due course, very soon, we will come back focusing on specific area for further elaboration. And I think today's discussion is important for all of us, and especially sharing your knowledge and also your encouragement. So I'm pretty sure that we will come up with the next one, focusing on various important issue. And I thank you for participating in this discussion. At least through the discussion from Taiwan, we can identify experts and also companies that you represented. And with this name and also institution, we hope that we can link up with you and work further. So once again, I'd like to thank Toby for inviting great friends from your side. And we also like to thank all participants spending time with us. If you have any further information, please send by email to us. And later on, Toby and I will work on whatever we discuss, wrap up with clear conclusion, share with everyone. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you.